Okay, welcome everyone. This is our defense review class for the review for the third week of the defense class. And this is the next to the last class that we had. Our last class is coming up this Friday. And the last class has a lot of odds and ends that we need to pull together into it. But this class has the first two classes had opening leads for both suits and no trump, then second hand high, third second hand low, third hand high. Between those three topics that we've had so far, um, these are the beginnings of how we communicate as defense players. We've talked about the fact that the offense, the declarer, really has the advantage because the declarer can see both hands. And so as when we're on defense, we need to figure out a way to work out the best thing towards defense between ourselves and our partners. And to do that, we have to get some insight into what partner has in his hand. And we need to give him some insight into what we have in our hand. Defense requires a lot of cooperation between the two partners into figuring out what's going on and making the best decision they can for the partnership about what the next card to lead back or whether to win a trick or not win a trick. It's all communication and figuring out what must be in the other partner's hand and what must be in the declarer's hand. You can see two hands. You can see your own and the dummy's hand, but you cannot see your partner's hand or declarer's hand, of course. So figuring out how the cards lie is the important part of what we do on defense, particularly. Declare needs to do it to some extent, but declare has more control because they can choose which cards to play. Defense can't. So you have to be kind of reading what's there. Now, one of the really good players at the club, George Watkins, who is very, very good at doing this, says that in order to start really picturing the other hands, you need to start counting what you see played, and so what must be left in the other hands. And this is just a thing of practice. You need to do this. You need to start doing it. And you can't count all the hands and hold them all in your head at once. He can pretty much, but really the really top players do a lot better job of this. But we can do it at the lower levels. We need to start practicing, and we need to practice on looking at one suit at a time. Just practice counting one suit on this hand. Next suit, we'll kind of try to practice on one hand, figuring out what must be in the other two hands that you can't see by what's being played. So just practice that. George told me that it takes about 2 years of really practicing this, counting the hands and picturing what's in the other hands, to get pretty adept at just that being natural for you to do, and you can count more of it at one time because it's natural. So my suggestion to you is early in your bridge career, start doing this so that you can, because that is what really adds to your ability to mount a good defense, is the ability to picture what's in the other hands. But we do what we can do at this point, right? So at this point in this class, what we're going to be talking about is signaling, because already in opening leads, we're giving some partners some information about our hand, depending on what we choose to lead. If we lead a honor in no trump, we're giving the partner a lot of information about our hand. Often, though, in leads, we're just leading what partner bid or, something that we have in our hand. But even if we're just choosing something in our hand, that gives partner information. We chose something for some reason, and we didn't choose something else for some reason. So you start kind of trying to narrow it down. The same thing is true with secondhand play and third hand play. As what partner plays or doesn't play starts to give you an idea about what they can have in their hand and what they're trying to do in defense. Or you can start doing things that will lead your partner the way you think we should go in defense. So we've already been learning how to picture partner's hand and gleaning some information from that and gleaning information from what was bid too. We don't want to forget that. That gives us information. But what we want to focus on now is signals, because this is a very important part of defense. So let's take a look at signals and see what they mean and how we can use them. Okay, so defensive signals, we did this handout in class. And defensive signals are the cards that you play when you are playing to discard, to not win a trick, but to just throw something off out of your hand. When you're playing low as second hand, they frequently come up because you're not playing to win a trick. Third hand high, you don't usually signal so often because frequently you're trying to win the trick on third hand. But generally, when you can, when you're going to throw off some little card, the card that you decide to throw off will give information to your partner. So let's look at some of the general rules about defensive signals, how they work. Well, first, when you are following to a suit or when you're discard, in other words, when your partner or the opponents are winning the trick and you're just going to play a low card on it, or when you can't play a card and you're having to throw something away in another suit. Both of those circumstances are when the card's value, what you're throwing off, can be used to send signals. So it's when you're not trying to win the trick mainly, but when you're just throwing a card on a suit, the card's value will send a signal. These signals are usually given with the cards 2 through the 9, because if you're trying to win a trick, usually it's face card that's winning the trick. So that's usually the 2 through the 9, the throwaway cards, are the ones where there could be signals that we need to be thinking about. Signals can usually be interpreted because they're not always just clear on the face of them what they mean. So you may have to think about what the bidding was. You may have to be thinking about the cards that are visible in dummy that you can see. Then you can see your hand. And then, of course, the cards that are held in your hand. So sometimes you have to interpret what that 5 of spades your partner just played, threw off on the hand, means. So you have to interpret it. It's not like you just play a card and that definitely means this thing. It's sometimes necessary to wait until your partner plays a second round to determine what was meant by the first card. In other words, if you are wanting to play a high card to signal your partner that you like something, that's what high cards signal, but the highest card you have in your hand is a 5 with the 4, 3, 2, then if you play the 5, it's not going to be clear that's a high signal or a low signal. It's not clear what it is. So your partner would need to wait until that suit is led again and you play another card. If you play the 6, well, he knows that the 5 was a low card. But if you play the 4, then he knows the 5 was the high card. So kind of, take sometimes a second card. That is called an echo. When you have to wait for the second card to be played because the first card is ambiguous. It's not clear what it means. Sometimes you need to wait for the echo of the card played to determine what was meant by that signal. Here's something you'll be glad to know. Although signals are useful, you are not required to follow them, depending on your understanding of the hand. So if your partner signals that they like a suit and they like you to return it, then you may choose not to do that because you know that from based on your hand, it's better to lead another suit. So you don't have to follow the signals. They're not a requirement. I will tell you in the assessment of blame phase later, the end of the hand, if your partner has been signaling you to lead something and you don't lead that thing, or if they've been signaling you they don't like a suit and you do lead the suit, you better have a reason for it. That's only fair. Okay. If the partner signaled and you got the signal, generally you should do what they ask you to do, unless there's a reason not to and you know what the reason is. And the reason should not just be, I didn't see your signal. Unfortunately, that is the answer a lot because here's the thing about defensive signals. You can signal all day. You can go crazy with signals, but if your partner is not watching and doesn't pay attention to them, they do you no good whatsoever. By the same token, your partner can be signaling like crazy. And if you are not paying attention and you're just doing your own thing at a hand, or in some cases, you need to have looked at the first card. What I do is wake up after the second or third card is played and go, oh, yeah, I should have paid attention to that. Well, that doesn't do you too much good because that card is gone. So it's really important if you want to have a good defensive game that you pay attention to what your partner is playing on a particular trick and think about why your partner is doing that. And if your partner leads a suit, why are they leading that suit? What does that mean to you? And what do the signals mean? So this is all part of making an effective defensive team. Now, I kind of hate to tell you all this because if you haven't been doing any of this stuff on defense for a long time, defense is kind of easy to play because you just react as best you can to whatever declare is doing. Unfortunately, though, that is never going to get you the best results as a bridge player. You need to play defense as well and spend as much time thinking about it as you do thinking about declare how, how to play a hand. And actually, you're on defense way more often than you're declare because you should be kind of divided half and half between defense and offense. So you're on the defensive side half the time and the offensive side half the time. But when you're on the offensive side, you're only the declare half the time of that. So that's a quarter of the time. The dummy, 1/4 of the time you're dummy, that's when you can relax. All the other 3 seats, though, have to be paying attention all the time. So that's my little lecture about paying attention. It's really important in defensive signals that you do that, that you be trying to communicate back and forth to draw a picture of each other's hands because there's no other way to do it. Okay, so those are the general rules of defensive signals. Oh, by the way, you should always signal an opening lead. When your partner makes the opening lead, the card that you play to that trick should send a signal. Even you don't always signal throughout the rest of the time. It's not always appropriate, but it is always appropriate on the opening lead to signal. Okay, so let's talk then about the signals themselves, what they are, and how they work. There are 3 different kinds of signals. There is an attitude, and the attitude you give is when your partner has led to the trick. And the attitude is, I like it or I don't like it. Lead that suit again or don't lead that suit again. So attitude, I like it, I don't like it, is on partner's leads. Partner has led a suit. You're telling him, if you just are having to slough off a card, you're telling him, I like that suit, lead it again, or I don't like that suit, I'm not encouraging you to lead it again. In general, a high card encourages. A high card, playing a high card of the 2 through 9, encourages partner. It says, lead that again. I've got something higher that might work to win a trick. So lead that again. Or a low card discourages. It says, partner, I'm not encouraging you. I don't have anything good in this suit. So I'm not encouraging you to lead it again. Lead it again if you want, but you're not getting anything from my hand. So that's attitude. The other kind of signal is count, helping your partner figure out how many cards you have in a particular suit. We only do this, though, generally against the suit that the declarer is leading, whether from his hand or from the dummy. So if the declarer is leading from either side, then your signals will signal count. Will tell your partner how many cards you have in that suit. And in general, on count, high and then low shows an even number of cards. Low and then higher up the line shows an odd number of cards. Your partner's got to figure out which is which. To me, it's easiest to think of high-low in terms of a doubleton. If you have a doubleton, you play high, then low. We've learned that already. Well, that's also part of the signaling system. And that's what helps me remember that that's for even, because high-low is a doubleton or any other even number of cards that you have. Then playing a low card and then playing a higher card shows an odd number of cards. This is useful when the declarer is leading because it helps your partner know how many times they might want to hold up before playing a card. So count, you should be giving count every time on declarer's lead if you were throwing a card away, not to win it, but just to play to the trick. You should be signaling your count. Now, this is less useful less often. It's not useful as often as attitude. Attitude we should always be doing, and attitude is nearly always useful at some point during the hand. The count, give the count, but it's not always useful. It's not always any information your partner can take from that. But still, you should be giving count the first times you're leading to applying to a trick that the opponents are leading, because your partner may be able to use it. And you, by the same token, should be kind of watching your partner, what they're playing on the trick. They played a 7, then they played a 4. That's high-low, okay? They have 2 or maybe 4 cards in the suit. You should always be paying attention to count. The third one is very useful, suit preference, but it does not come up very often, and it's hard to identify the situations where it is important. But what it does is, it's usually when your partner is trumping and needs to get back to your suit, to your hand, so you can lead another card for them to trump. They can't see your hand, so they don't know which other suit beside trump that you might have a good card in. So in general, if you are playing to a card, leading a suit, if you lead a high card back for your partner to trump, for instance, it says you can play the higher suit back to me. Or if you lead a low card back to him to trump, it says lead the lower suit back to me. We'll look at some examples of these. This suit preference, I will grant you, is being that it comes up less often and it's hard to identify and hard to use. Suit preference, you will probably not be using very much. But if you do get to the position where you're starting to recognize these and use these, it will really bump your game up quite a bit when the circumstances apply. So remember that attitude applies when the defenders are leading. So you're on defense. So when your partner leads, that's attitude. And count applies when the declarer is leading, so that you can help your partner count the number of cards in your hand, and then re-emphasizing neither one of them applies when you're trying to win a trick. Okay? Now, here we're talking about throwing cards off on a suit where your partner has is winning the trick, or the declare or the dummy is winning the trick, and you were just playing a low card because you don't have a chance of winning the trick. If you were trying to win the trick, you win the trick. That's not a signal. But throwing something off is a signal. And you are always able to do that when you are discarding, which is just tossing a card when you can't follow suit. So if they play a suit and you don't have any of that suit, you get to throw something off from another suit. You can choose the suit and you can choose what to play in that suit. So that is a very good opportunity for you to give attitude signals for your partner, is when you are doing discards. Because of this, some people play different things to give information about discards. And I put one of them on here because I use this handout for general people that are doing this. But for you guys, where we're talking new defense, basic defense, forget that this is even down here. Don't worry about this. That I'd even just cross it out on your sheet. Because in discards, when you're just discarding, throwing something completely different, you can't follow suit. We'll use our regular attitude rules then. We'll choose a suit because we like the suit, and then we'll discard a high card in it. Or if we don't have any suit to encourage you to lead, we'll just find a suit that's really not good and throw away a low card in that suit. That's when you can't follow suit. That's the discard you'll use. They're just the attitude discards. A high card from that suit would encourage your partner to lead that suit when they get a chance. A low card thrown away would say, I'm not encourage you. I discourage you from this suit. One other thing I want to mention is you can choose to play this upside down. Okay. And some people do choose to play that way. If you're playing at the Bridge Center, for everything except the 0 to 20 game, everybody probably plays standard in that. And standard is the general information I've given you here. Everybody's playing standard. There is the opposite of standard, which is upside down. If you're playing upside down for attitude, a low card encourages. A 2 or 3 says, hey, I like this suit. And a high card like a 9 would discourage. It would say, don't lead the suit. You can even do count upside down. Low, high would show an odd number instead of even, and high, low would show an odd number instead of even. So these can be turned upside down. When someone asks you what your signals are, and they do this frequently, it's good to know what system someone is using for signaling. You just say standard and forget about this. You aren't going to be doing this. But you may play against people who are using upside down. And if they tell you they're using upside down, all it means is the signals are the opposite of what you're playing as standard. You are going to be playing standard signals. So forget this upside down thing and forget this odd even thing down here. I explained it in class and it confused the heck out of everybody. So just forget that part of it. Okay, let's take a look at how in practice some of these things work in chapter 5 of our book, page 140. It starts talking about the attitude signals. And it gives us an example here on page 140, the middle of the page, where partner leads a 3 and the ace is in dummy. If dummy does not play the ace, you're going to play the king to win the trick. That's not a signal. That's not a signal. But if dummy plays the ace, now you, with the king 9-2, are just going to throw off a card, any card. Now, you wouldn't want to throw off the king, right? Because since they're playing the ace, now your king is good, right? So you would never throw that away. But wouldn't you like your partner to know that you have a good card in that suit and that they should lead that card back to you? Sorry about my alarm there. So you want them to lead that card back to you. So what you would do in this case is play the 9. We have a choice of playing the 9 or the 2 on this hand. In the olden days, before you learned these signals, you just throw the 2, right? It's the lowest one. Why throw the 9 away? Hang on to it. But if you want to signal your partner, and you should be signaling when you can, this is a perfect example of when to do it. The ace is played, your king is now good, but he's not going to know whether you have the king or declarer has the king, right? So if he gets a chance to lead again, you would like him to lead a spade so you can get your king. If you get the lead, you play the king, that's fine. But you want to signal him in case he has the lead of what he should send to you. So you want to play the 9 that says, partner, hey, partner, I've got a good card here, the king. So next time you get a chance to lead this suit again. We talked about high cards encouraged, low cards discouraged. Look at the bottom of the page there. Here, partner leads the 3, dummy plays the ace, and now you need to decide what to throw off. You could throw off the 9, the 6, or the 2. It's not going to impact what happens, but it will is an opportunity to tell your partner something about your hand. Well, on this hand, do you have anything to encourage him about? No, your highest card's a 9. That's not likely to win anything. So you just play the 2. And that discourages him. Think about this. He played the 3 for some reason. He played that 3 of spades for some reason. And so he doesn't have the ace. We know that. We don't know what else he has. We know probably he doesn't have the king and the queen, because if he had touching honors, he would have led one of them. But he probably has one or the other of those, plus maybe others. So he's leading it for a reason. You, by the same token, need to tell him whether or not you have anything to help him in that suit or you don't. And in this case, you don't. So you would just play the 2. The fact that you've played a low card says, I'm no help in this suit, partner. You go on and you do you. Whatever things are missing that you can't see in dummy are probably in declarer's hand. Okay. If you'll look at over on page 144, it talks about once you start signaling, you don't really stop. And this is also kind of part of the idea of that we need to sometimes echo because it's not always clear. You know, is a 6 a high card or a low card? The 7, 7, 8, 9 are pretty much high cards. And 2, 3, 4 are pretty much low cards. 5 and 6 are pretty much always ambiguous. And even a 7 could be a low card if all else you have is the 8 and the 9. And a 4 could be a high card if all else you have are the 3 and the 2. So you need to wait and see what partner is telling you. So look in the middle of page 144. Here your partner has led the queen. Your partner has led the queen. If the opponents take the ace, you have an opportunity to signal. Well, what should you signal? In this case, you don't have a lot, but you do have an honor. A 10 is an honor, a 9 is not. A 10 is an honor. Our honors are ace, king, queen, jack, 10. So the 10 is actually an honor. So you want to signal high. You will play the 7. When your partner sees that, your partner probably assumes that's high and means you have something in the suit, but they can't really decide until a second time that suit is played. Now you play the 2. You play a low card. And that is going to tell him you definitely have something in that suit. Look over on page 146 now. How high is high? Well, it's as high as you can play to win the trick. So look at the middle there of page 146, the first one. Partner has led the 5, and the ace of diamonds is played. Okay. Now you have the king, so you want to signal partner to lead again. So the best you can do is play the 4. That is going to look low to your partner. He is going to assume that you are not encouraging him, even though you have the king. He's assuming at this point that declarer has the king. So next time this suit is led, unless you can play the king to win it, next time this suit is led, you need to play the 2. Now he goes, oh, wait, that 4 was high, because you should be paying attention at least to the first 2 cards that your partner plays on at least the first couple of suits. That is one thing about signals, is that they are usually only able to be done the first or second time the first or second suits are led, because after that, more things have happened in the hand that make signals not as useful. They still may come up later in the hand, but it's not like you can signal, you're signaling every time on every card that's played. Many times you're playing to win, and other times you're just playing because that's the last card you have in the suit. You can't do anything else about that. That's why your partner, especially at the beginning, needs to watch the first card that you're playing and think, is that high or low? And then find out by the second one that you play. You know, if you're playing really high, if you play a 9, definitely that's high. If you play a 2, definitely that's low. And if you're playing the odds, most of the time a 7 or an 8 is high and a 4 and a 3 is low. The 5 and the 6 are pretty much always ambiguous, and the rest of them can be ambiguous. So don't just assume that you know what they do. Same token here at the bottom. Look at the bottom of the page. Partners played a 5. The dummy plays the ace. Well, you have nothing to encourage here, so you'll play the 7. Again, that's going to look high to him. But the next time you play to that suit, if you'll play the the 8, he should figure out what's going on if he's paying attention. Look at page 147 now. We said that a high card encourages partner to lead the suit again. Now, usually we encourage partner to lead the suit again because we've got something in the suit. So we want them to lead the suit again so we can make our high cards in the suit good. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you want to be signaling them to lead again because you're going to be trumping soon. Look at the example on page 147. Okay, the contract is 4 spades, and your partner leads the ace of hearts. Well, what do we know when partner leads the ace of hearts? We know he's got the king of hearts, right? Look at your hand, the east hand here. You have got the 10 and the 4. So when he plays the ace, you're just going to throw a card off, right? You could throw either the 10 or the 4. He's winning with the ace. But wouldn't you like him to lead the king next? Right? Because if he leads the king next, after that, you're going to be trumping. So in this case, you would lead a discard, play to that trick a 10. That encourages him to continue the suit. So the next card he plays should be the king, and then you'll play the 4. And then he should lead the suit again, and now you get to trump. If you do this and your partner plays this correctly, then you are going to get a trick in dummy. In your hand, you're going to be able to trump that declare is not counting on you being able to get. Look at the north-south hands. if North-South is counting up the losers that he's got in this hand, he is assuming that he has no losers in spades and that he has a loser in hearts. Well, as it turns out, he is going to have the loser in hearts, and he's also going to lose a spade trick that he's not expecting to lose. So he should go down. So you can encourage partner to continue to lead, not because you have high cards, but because you don't have cards in the suit. It's the same thing if you want to get a ruff. Okay, look over on page 124 because there's some examples here of what we should be playing, how we should signal attitude. And that's what we're talking about here is attitude only. So if we look at attitude, page 150, top of the page, partner leads the 4, dummy plays the ace. What card would you play out of the queen, 8, 3? He's played the ace. You would like partner to know you've got something in that hand so he can continue to lead it. So you would play the 8. And the 8, we can be fairly sure, is a encouraging card. It's a high card. The next example, partner has led the king. Dummy plays low. And you are going to play low to show that you are not encouraging him to continue in that suit. The next example, partner plays the king. Dummy covers it with the ace. And now you should play the 5, the high card, because you have the jack left. The jack is the next to the highest card left. So that's a good card to have. And you know your partner has the queen because your partner led the king, right? That should say that he has the queen, top of touching honors. So you've got the jack, he's got the queen. You want to play the 5 to encourage him to play again. When he does play again, he should lead the queen next. Now you'll play the 2 because the 5 is not really clear, right? The 5 can be ambiguous, but once he leads the queen and you play the 2, now he knows where the jack is because you have signaled. And so now he knows where the jack is. If you, before you took this class, before you were doing signals, you'd have just thrown the 2 away, right? Because, you just throw a low card away, you're not going to win that trick. So he still would have had no more information than he knew. He would play the king, then he would play the queen, and he still doesn't know where the jack is. But by you knowing signals and playing the 5 first and then playing the 2, now partner goes, partner has the jack. I'll lead a low card and partner will win with the jack. The last example here is partner has led the 4. And if dummy plays small, you will play the queen. That is not a signal. That is winning the trick. Okay? So if the dummy does not play the ace, they play small. You play big. Win the trick if you can. That's third hand high. So it's only when you were throwing away a card, as you would be if they played the ace. Now you're just tossing a card away. And instead of tossing away the 3, as if you didn't know signals, you just throw the lowest card away. Once you know signals, you would throw the 6 away because that indicates you may have a higher card. It's ambiguous because the 6, we're not sure. But if partner leads that suit again or declarer leads the suit again, you'll play the lower club. Now he knows you have a higher card. It's queen. He, depending on what he can see as his hand, he may know it's the queen. He may have the king, or he may still not know what it is, but he knows you have either the king or the queen. Okay, count signals. And let's look back at our handout here. Count is when declarer has led, either from his hand or for the dummy, but the opponents have led to that trick. Now you want to give count for your partner so your partner will know how many cards you have in the suit. If you play a high card, then a low card, that's an even number of cards. If you play low and then go up the line, that is an odd number of cards. Many times that is useful to know. If you look at page 152 in your book, this is a 3 no trump contract, and your partner has led the 2 of spades. That's fourth down from his longest suit. You're going to put in the queen if the ace is not played. And in this one, we're going to be counting for the diamonds, right? No, excuse me, the hearts. Because he is going to get the ace, king, queen of hearts. But we need to let partner know how many hearts we have. Oh, excuse me. I'm going backwards in this. Forget everything I just said. Partner has led. No, this is right. This is right because we're talking about what other suit you may get in with. And so when declarer leads, you need to let them know what the count is. Let's look at some examples back on page 158. A couple of examples of how to give count. In this case, the top of page 158, declarer has led the king of hearts. Your partner plays the 8 on there. And because that is a high card that partner has just played, just playing to the suit, he can't win the trick, so he played low. But he is playing a high card to be playing low to not win the trick. So when he plays that, we think, okay, he must have 2 or 4 cards or 6 or 8, whatever, an even number of cards in the suit. So when he plays the 8, you can see 6 cards in the dummy, right? And you have 3, that's 9. Declarer probably has at least 1, that's 10. So you want to be giving your partner needs to be figuring out, you need to be figuring out how many cards your partner has. It can't be 4 because there aren't that many cards left. So it has to be 2. He has to have 2 cards in his hand in hearts. He's played the 8 first, and so you do not want to play the ace first. You want to play a low card first, not win with the ace. Because 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, there are 2 cards in declare 12, 13, okay? If you play your ace first, that leaves a little card for him to go back and win the rest of the tricks in dummy. So you need to hold off on playing your ace because your partner has 2, therefore declare has 2, because dummy has 6 and you have 3. But that does mean that you can play it on the second one. You don't need to hold up to the third time. Ordinarily, we would hold up 3 times. But this means you only need to hold up twice because declarer cannot now lead a card back to his hand. Now, all of this depends on a lot of things. For instance, if he has other ways back to the dummy, this doesn't really make a lot of difference. Or if he is going to be able to take the rest of the tricks anyway, it's not going to make any difference. But many times it does make a difference, and it lets you know how, by your partner helping you by giving you that count, lets you know how you can best defend that suit. The same thing is true on the next hand. A diamond, the declarer led the jack, and your partner played the 7. that feels high. He's probably playing high-low. He probably has 2. And here you can only see 5 in the dummy, and you have 3. So that's 8. So is he playing high from high-low? It would seem like more likely that he might have 3, unless this is the trump suit, in which case that the Clara probably has at least 3 of these. Well, probably has more, or else this is not the trump suit. So anyway, by him playing the 7, you're thinking it's high. You think that first. Then you have to wait till it's played the second time to see was that high or low. And this makes it kind of problematic because if it's not the trump suit, you're going to want to, if it's high, you're going to want to take your ace on the second one. Otherwise, it's going to be trumped after that. So that helps you know what you need to play next. If he, though, plays the 8 next, then you know that he had 3, not 2. Then you will hold up again on your ace. Like I say, the count is useful many times, but not always, and it's harder to do the count. So try doing the count. Do the attitude for sure. The one that is hardest to see and comes up less often, count can come up on every hand. You should be doing count on every hand. It's just, do you really need it on every hand in every suit? No. But just get used to doing it, just as your partner should get used to reading your signals. You should get used to making signals every time you have a chance to make a signal. You'll make a signal. If it's when it's the first time to play to a suit, that's when you start the signal. Sometimes that's the start and the end of it because your card is clear. Sometimes you have to wait for the echo for it to be clear, but you should always be signaling on the first time a suit is led, attitude if your partner has led it, or count if the opponents have led it. But there is the third type in that suit preference, and it's over on page 159. 159. And it's really interesting because it's a killer when you get it and you can do it because it's valuable information. Like I say, doesn't come up a lot. You have to recognize when it comes up and you have to figure out what it means. You as the person who's going to do it, need to figure out what you need to play and when it's applicable. And your partner needs to be able to read that and figure out what he needs to do. So let's look at this example here of where a suit preference signal would be the thing to do. In this situation, we're playing 4 spades, and your partner has led the ace of hearts. Okay? He led the ace of hearts, top of touching honors. We know he has the king. We can't, remember, you, East, can't see any other hands, any other cards except the dummy. So partner led the ace, and when the dummy comes down, all of us can see that the dummy has a singleton heart. Now you have a bunch of hearts over here, right? You have a bunch of hearts, but there is no point, no matter what you had in this suit, of encouraging or discouraging a lead because partner knows this suit is a dead end. Does that make sense? He's not going to play the king. It's going to get trumped. He's going to hold on to his king until everything else is gone. Maybe his king will be good. But he's not going to lead it next. So the card you play is not going to be the attitude that you would usually do. So what it will be in this case is a suit preference signal. So the preference you're telling him, you are telling him, should you lead a diamond back, or should you lead a diamond now, or should you lead a club now? And there's always only 2 choices because the suit preference signal you're making in a suit, the the trump suit is the second suit. So you're asking him to pick between the other 2 suits. So whatever suit it is you're discarding in, that's one. The trump is the other, And then the last two are what he's choosing between. In this hand, in this situation, he's played the ace. And so he's not going to lead another one. You need to say if you have a preference between him leading diamonds or clubs. And look at this situation. Do you have a preference here? Oh boy, you do, right? Because you've got the ace queen, and better than that, better than you'd tell him anyway, you prefer clubs. But look at this situation. He can see the king of clubs sitting in dummy. Turns out you have the ace queen. He doesn't know that. But if you play a low card, if you play the three of hearts, that should tell him, he should figure out, well, they're going to know I'm not going to lead another heart. So if they play a low one, I'm going to lead the lower suit. If you played the 10 of hearts, he would lead diamonds. But you're playing the 3 of clubs, that's low, that tells him to lead a club. So if he leads a club next, then dummy has to decide, does he play the king or not? Whichever he does, you get the ace and the queen. If he plays the king, you get the ace and then the queen. If he plays low, you play the queen and then you get your ace. So this is a suit preference signal. Like I say, both of you have to realize that this is a situation. Your partner has to think, oh, wait, I'm not going to lead hearts again. I wonder what the suit I should lead next should be. Your partner is going to help you out recognizing that you're not going to lead hearts again by giving you a suit preference signal, telling you whether he wants you to lead clubs or diamonds. Now, let me point out that if, for instance, these club suits were reversed, you would probably lead the ace of clubs. I mean, you might not, to keep the king trapped over there, or you might have really good diamonds. He might signal you to lead clubs, and you might choose to play diamonds instead. But still, you would remember that he was telling you that that club lead is a good lead, and so you should make it when you can. Like we said earlier, you don't always have to follow a signal, but it's best if you do when you can. And in this situation, perfect situation, you should definitely do that. Let's look at one more example of the suit preference signals, because this is a little bit different situation. This is a situation where your partner has led the singleton. This is a 4-spade contract, and your partner is leading the 9 of diamonds. So you would think, and look at your partner's hand. Against 4 spades, what else are they going to lead? They don't have anything else to lead. They'll think, well, I'll try leading a singleton. Maybe that will work. Got nothing else in my hand. So they're going to lead the 9 of diamonds. And then you, as the partner, can figure out that that is probably a singleton. You can see 3 cards in dummy. You've got 6 cards. That's 9 cards. 10 plus your partner's card. So that would mean the declarer could have 1, 2, or 3. Well, if he just had 2, that could be, the 9 could be part of a doubleton. Okay? So the 9 could be part of a doubleton. But it also could be where that's a singleton if declarer has 3 in the suit. So you want to tell partner, if in case it is a singleton, you want to give partner an idea of what he could lead back to your hand, so you could win another trick and lead another diamond back to him. Do you see that? For him to get to trump a diamond, you've got to lead diamonds back to him. And so you've got to tell him, once he trumps, what he can lead back to you to win in your hand so you can lead diamonds back to him. So he leads the 9. That's a singleton. Dummy plays whatever dummy is going to play, and then you play the ace to win the trick, third hand high. Now you can lead any card back to him to trump because you're assuming that's what he's going to do. So you could lead the 10, the 8, the 7, the 4, or the 2 back to tell him so he can just trump it. It's going to lose. But the one that you pick could tell him what card, after he wins by trumping, what suit he should lead back to you so you can win another trick and send him another one to trump. Well, in this case, do you have a choice? And the choice would be between hearts and clubs because spades is the trump suit. So you're going to tell him either lead hearts or clubs back to me once you win this trick. Once you trump this trick, partner, lead either hearts or clubs back. And clearly, we would want him to lead clubs because we can win the ace. So we want to throw away, lead back to him the 2 of diamonds. That says, partner, lead the lower suit. That's the clubs. So you'll lead the 2 of diamonds back. He'll trump with a spade. He'll lead the club, a small club, to you. You'll win with the ace and send another diamond back to him to trump. So that's going to get you 1, 2, 3, 4 tricks, which is setting the contract. If you do not tell him, if you don't signal for him, or if he doesn't know you do suit preferences and he doesn't pay attention, he's not going to know whether to lead hearts or clubs back. And if he leads hearts back, then Declare is going to take that trick and is going to pull the spades, pull the trumps, and your partner will not be able to trump again. So in order to defeat this contract, it depends on him knowing that the right suit to lead back to you is clubs, and that is a suit preference signal. So you understand what I say when I say suit preferences are sometimes hard to see. They require you to make some assumptions for them to work, and they require you to figure out the right suit to lead back, and they also require your partner to figure out that's what's going on, and that you're not just, for instance, playing the 2 because you're just throwing a little card away. You're giving him information by playing the 2. Suit preferences are hard. They're a little bit more advanced, but they can happen anytime. And so you do need to know them. And you'll feel so proud when you correctly do your first suit preference signal. That shows you really arrived in the game of bridge if you're doing suit preference signals. Okay, so that is the signaling, very important, something you should really be paying attention to and learn how to do, particularly the attitude signals. For those of you that are beginning in class, beginning in bridge, some of you in this class have played a lot of bridge. You should be picking up suit preference signals and doing them. But for a lot of you in class, this is your first introduction to signals. Pay attention to the attitude signals. Pay attention to count if you can, and you should be giving a count signal every time when you're throwing off on something the opponents have led. You'll play high-low for even, low-high for odd. Start doing that, but it's not that useful usually. So if you can't get your partner's signal, it's not such a deal. But an attitude, that does make a difference. You should be doing it every time. Both of you should be paying attention, and you both should be using those attitude signals. Okay, for our last class, which will be next Friday, we are going to be focusing some of the key points of the last several chapters. We're sort of throwing everything into one. Those chapters are good. They contain a lot of good information, a lot of good examples, but we're going to be kind of cherry picking the important things out of there that you will be using frequently. Okay. All right, that's it for today. I will see some of you tomorrow, and I'll see everybody else next Friday.